Joining us now to go further in depth, Dr. Walid Phares, Middle East expert and author of the book The Lost Spring, U.S. Policy in the Mideast and Catastrophes to Avoid. Dr. Phares, thanks for your time joining us by phone today.
Thank you so much for having me today, Congress.
Walid, do you believe this will be an effective strategy?
Well, we're talking about the training of the Syrian opposition or
Yes.
the support to the Iraqi army?
Well, actually, the support within the Iraqi army, what Admiral Kirby was being questioned about at the Pentagon the other day.
Well, the Iraqi army definitely has a lot of equipment. We don't need to send them additional equipment. What we need to do is to make sure that this Iraqi army, which is now planning on waging what they call a spring offensive, they're training for a few months, has many Sunnis. The problem is not going to be only on the military level. Yes, they can advance, but can they hold the ground? Can they occupy those places? Can they not be attacked later at night by jihadists who are Sunnis? The issue is not really technological in as much as it is political. Their government needs to make sure that they have enough Sunni participation for them to be ready to not just go and seize those places, but also be able to occupy them and have the people support them.
You mentioned one word in your answer that I want to come back to. That word is political. Are political considerations both abroad and this country the reason the Pentagon and others have been so public about this alleged springtime operation?
Yes, because there has been a lot of pressure both in Iraq, in the region, and even here about what is our response. I mean, how is it that a terrorist organization, that would be the Islamic State, can seize 1/3 plus in Iraq and 1/3 plus in Syria? And despite all our air campaign and despite all the advices that we send, the Iraqis are not making gains on the ground. So now probably the answer is, because we are addressing domestic issues here, is that we are working on establishing this force to train it, and then there will be a major offensive in the spring. And I am one who's saying, if you don't show us evidence that the Iraqi army is changing, its government is really changing politically, we're going to see more of the same, because they have done those offensives many, many times. What they're not able to do is to rally the population.
And perhaps one reason they're not rallying the population, reports that ISIS has abducted and killed dozens of people from a Sunni tribe in Anbar province. What do you know about that, Walid?
That's a terrible tragedy. That's one of the darkest chapters in this war. Because we are not liberating those areas from ISIS, ISIS is acting like a Nazi regime inside the Sunni areas of Iraq and in Syria. They're going after those tribes who have been our allies during the Awakening program 2 years ago, the Sahwa program. So they go against them, they kill males, they sometimes decimate even children and elderly. They are, they are imposing a terror regime on the population to make sure that nobody's going to rise against it. That's why you and I have been discussing for weeks now, we need to, as soon as possible, have an alliance with Sunni tribes before they are decimated. Otherwise, we won't have anybody to ally with in the Sunni areas.
And one of those tribes, with its number in the tens of thousands, apparently ready to take back their town that was overtaken by ISIS last month. As we move to solidify some sort of alliance with those tribes, are those tribes armed adequately?
I mean, every tribe in Iraq, Congressman, as you know, on the individual level, they have weapons. I mean, everybody in their home has an individual weapon. But do they have heavy weapons, medium-sized weapons? Do they have communications among themselves? Can they communicate with us? Are we doing dropping of ammunition for them as we're doing for the Kurds? No. So this tribe that you have just mentioned now, Al-Nimr tribe, has not only, readying itself to fight, but they fought over the past few weeks. And in retaliation, it's a reminder of how the German Nazis used to retaliate against the French resistance. I mean, they were killings, mass killings, and that's what's happening now. The last 50 people killed is just the last group of people. They have been killing hundreds of them.
Walid, ISIS fighters in Syria claim they've taken control of a gas field in the central part of that nation, the second gas field that ISIS has seized in a week after battles with government forces. How important are those energy resources to ISIS?
These energy resources are important to Syria as a whole, to the regime. The regime is losing them. The moderate Syrians, so-called moderate Syrians, are losing them. And in fact, ISIS is seizing them and adding them to the portfolio. They have already oil reserves or oil sites in Iraq and now in Syria. So they're becoming an oil-producing regime. Now, of course, the answer is that they cannot sell them on the international market because they're not government recognized. But what they're doing, they have invented something very interesting. They sell them tactically, meaning they sell them to whomever wanna buy in Turkey, in Syria, in Iraq, and even beyond those borders. They are very important, ways for them to get cash, and that's what they need.
We only have about a minute left, and Walid, I think you would agree there are mixed messages about the progress of ISIS, whether or not our air power is stalling it out or ISIS remains on the march. From your sources on the ground there, what can you tell us? What's really going on?
Look, to be very fair on the issue, it's true that our air power, although used at its minimum, helped the Kurds withstand the ISIS march in the north into Erbil. That is true, or around Sinjar. Same could be said about around Baghdad. But to say that the air power that we have used so far has stopped ISIS from seizing more land, from more Sunni land in Iraq, and you just mentioned right now they seized an additional oil center, and they have been trying to take an airport. I expect in the next few days they're going to be taking an important military airport in Syria. So wherever they can go, they are going, except in the areas that were decided to draw a red line. So they have drawn their own borders, and we are founding these borders at this point in time, but we're not reversing them, Congressman.
Fair enough. Walid, we're going to ask you to remain with us. More with Dr. Walid Phares coming up as America's Forum continues following this Newsmax Now update.